Hello, everyone. This is Brian Ankney with Auto Success Magazine. We're going to get started here in just a few minutes with Rocky De La Fuente. Rocky is a car dealer from San Diego, California. Going to share some history about himself, as well as share his perspective on why a car dealer would make a great president. We're a couple minutes out from getting started. Please just hang tight, and we will get started right on time. Thank you. Hello, everyone. This is Brian Ankney with Auto Success Magazine. Thank you for coming to join us today. Today's guest is Rocky De La Fuente. Rocky is an auto dealer from California, and he's had a career that spanned multiple dealerships, different real estate holdings, and now he decided that he wants to become the president of the United States. Today we're going to talk with Rocky about a couple different topics that have to do with the car business, and then a couple of that have to do with the national business. Before we get started, I'd like to just go over a couple things. Oh, hello, you there?
Brian, this is Rocky De La Fuente in just 1 second.
Okay, perfect. I'm just introducing everybody right now, and then we'll just have him come on. Everyone on the webinar, if you haven't already, join the group on Facebook, Auto Success Webinars. It's a great way to interact with our speakers and also find out about future webinars, suggest future webinars, or just a place to find good content. Also, if you haven't yet, if you don't get Auto Success Magazine, please send me an email, and I'll make sure that you do. My email address is Brian with an I at autosuccessonline.com. Actually, and one exciting thing is Rocky's actually, we're getting a sneak preview of the debate tonight. Rocky's actually going to be involved in the debate tonight in New Hampshire, and so we're getting a little sneak peek of Rocky. If you notice on your control panel on the right, there's the opportunity for the option to ask questions. If you want to ask questions, we'll take the questions at the end of the webinar. If you can type them in at any time, and it'll just save it for me. So if a question comes to mind, type it in there, and we will get to them at the end. Also, if you would like to, get more information about Rocky, his website is Rocky 2016. So Rocky and then the numbers 2016.com. Go on there and check it out. He's got a lot of great videos and other information about his positions. Rocky, are you with us?
I'm 100% here, and I was basically being patient listening to you.
Awesome. Well, Rocky, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
It's my pleasure, Brian.
If you don't mind, maybe give our audience just a little bit of history about your history in the car business.
Well, if I start from the scratch, the first time I was in the car business, I was 14 years old, and I was working in the parts department. And they gave me the ugly job of filling in the battery with water or the acids. And I had to be very careful because I spilled some of that in one of my pants, and I found out what happened when you spill some acid in your pants. So I knew that was not the right decision. But I learned that in the 14, when I was 14. Then at age 19, circumstances beyond my control forced me to find a job. And the first job I took was selling Mazdas in San Diego, California. And I was working, and that's when they had just basically came out of the successful rotary engine, the Wankel engine. and that's when the 1974 the Wankel engine was dead. Okay, and then immediately I worked for Toyota. So I was basically in Toyota in late 74, early 75, and I saw how this company had come to the United States and how they made interesting products that were unbelievable. Now, I used to be in the family from Volkswagen. When I told you I was working in the parts department, it was through Volkswagen. So I knew Volkswagen since I can remember Volkswagen. So that was my first new car. My first used car was a 71 Ford Pinto Runabout. But in 1974, I basically went to work Toyota. Finally, in 75, I became a general sales manager for Kearny Mesa Volkswagen, the largest Volkswagen dealer in San Diego County. Sold up to 50% of all the Volkswagen in San Diego County, even though it was competing with 8 Volkswagen dealers. Now, it was the second largest in the States, second to Walnut Creek. The reason why that guy was number 1 is because there were only 2 dealers in Walnut Creek, which has a market identical to San Diego County. So he was competing with 1 other dealer, and I was competing with 8 other dealers. But anyway, so I was general manager for Kearny Mesa Volkswagen. At the time, Volkswagen decided to drop the Beetle and basically bring in the Rabbits. And everybody thought the Rabbit was the best thing since sliced bread, until all of a sudden the car had some problems, and the next thing we knew is people wanted the Beetle back again. Then I saw Volkswagen sales start plundering, just like they did. The peak year was 72, and I saw it plundered. So I was the first dealer in the country to become dual. And I was able to dual Volkswagen with Peugeot. Never heard of. You never seen that ever happen in the industry before. But my father taught me to think outside the box, and eventually I figured out to throw away the box. So I was able to become the first Peugeot dealer that was dual with Volkswagen. And I became immediately very successful, and I became the largest Peugeot dealer in the United States. Of course, at that particular moment, I said the only way I can grow with this business is keep on growing. So I was able to add Subaru. And that was quite a feat by itself, because they had come up in California with a 10-mile law. When all of a sudden, when Subaru wanted to add more dealerships, they were facing with a 10-mile law. So I was the first dealer in California to be able to go to the Motor Vehicle Board and get approved, whereby there's hypothetical geographics where the 10-mile law makes no logical sense. And therefore, Subaru spent a lot of money and time and energy to approve me as a Subaru dealer. And we made history by basically being the first dealer to be able to get the Subaru franchise. At that moment, I decided I liked this game, so I basically came in and got American Motors, Jeep, and Renaults. And of course, the worst manufacturer I ever done business with is American Motors. Those guys were so bad, it's not even funny. After working with Subaru, after working with Andrews from Subaru, or working with Volkswagen, or with Peugeot, I thought that all the manufacturers had honor and integrity. Well, I never knew what honor and integrity was until I met the people from American Motors. Those guys were so bad, it was not even funny. It was the biggest, worst corporation I ever done business with. But then, of course, I had the honor of working later with Chrysler, that ended up getting Jeep, and then I had the honor of working with Renault. So it's American Motors, of course, everybody knows, became history. Then I became, about 1980, I bought Cadillac, and I became Cadillac, Oldsmobile, Pontiac, and GMC Truck. Then I decided that, well, man, people don't want to buy a Cadillac. Maybe they want to buy a Lincoln. So I became Lincoln Mercury, and later became Mercure. Then I decided, well, I need more Volkswagen. So I got another Volkswagen store. Then I got another Peugeot store. Then I got Porsche, Audi, Honda, Chrysler, Plymouth, Dodge trucks. Then I got Daihatsu. And I liked Daihatsu because they had a name named Rocky. So I got Daihatsu. Then I got Alfa Romeo, Isuzu. But when it's all said and done, there are basically 28 franchises. So I was basically the first mega dealer in the country at 28 franchises by 1982. It's at the same token, I said, this has to go public. And they told me, it ain't going to happen in your lifetime. And of course, it took somebody outside the auto industry, Penske, not Penske, the guy from Blockbusters, to be able to, he already figured out how to go public with Blockbusters, so he was able to get into our business, and he be able to become public. And of course, that was the first in the industry. And you tell me what I went through. I went through it. I went through when we were only financing cars through Bank of America, and then Bank of America decided that they did not want to finance cars because it was 22% prime or 23% prime. I experienced in 1982-83, 1/3 of all the automobile dealers going broke. So I realized a lot of interesting things, that every 10 years, 25% of the automobile dealers in the country go broke. So sometime in the next 3-4 years, we're going to experience that same cycle all over again like we have in the past. But I can keep on talking nonstop, so I want to let you ask the questions more specifically and have your audience have the opportunity to ask me any and all questions on any and all subjects.
Okay. Well, Rocky, my first question is, what do you feel makes a car dealer uniquely qualified to lead the nation as President of the United States?
Well, the question is quite simple. For me, there's university. You can go to university, you can get a master's degree, you can get a PhD. Well, being an automobile dealer in a metro market, wow, that's an education of a lifetime. Going to be a 20 group, going to a 20 group and figure out how the 20 group works. Looking at your financial statements. You now all of a sudden paying your taxes, paying your employees, per payment workers' comp, paying Social Security. I mean, you tell me what facet, marketing, advertising, lawsuits, customer satisfaction, competition, global competition, market competition. I mean, you tell me one facet that's not covering an automobile business. The parts department, distribution. Are you open 8 hours a way? First of all, the dealerships are open technically 365 days a year minus 5 days that we get for free because it was basically given to us by our godparents. I mean, it is the most competitive business. Some businesses are open 12, 14, 16 hours a day. Folks, there has to be a smarter way to do this business. Okay? I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So I can tell you what I would change, but you have to do it with logic. Okay? And it's, I mean, I can tell you it's a very competitive environment. So to ask you your question is, I believe that the reason I still own a Cadillac dealership. It's all one store, one franchise, and I kept it for one reason and one reason only. I kept it because I want my 2 older boys, Rocky and Ricardo, to go to that university. That's the University of Hard Knocks. That's a university of life. That's a university of logic. You'd learn more in 3 years in the car business than getting 2 PhDs. I don't know if that answers your question, or would you like me to elaborate a little bit more?
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Rocky. Now I'd like to kind of shift gears from the car business to the business of the nation. I took a couple of slides from your website, and I wanted to maybe see if maybe you could touch on maybe the perspective that a car dealer would bring to foreign policy.
Well, let's understand that one. Well, I was there when all of a sudden Japan started coming into the United States. So basically, it was Toyota. And I don't know if you remember this vehicle, but it's called Datsun. And of course, Datsun is, of course, most people probably won't remember it, but that was the original name for Nissan. They called it Nissan worldwide, but for the United States, they call it Datsun because they felt that Nissan would not be sold in the Americans would not buy a Japanese-looking name. Well, then, of course, what happened? Honda showed up. Then what else happened? Then the rest of the Japanese showed up, including the second tier, i.e. Lexus, i.e. Acura, i.e. Infiniti. And of course, you had the other brands, Suzuki, you had Daihatsu. All of a sudden, you had 9 brands coming in from Japan. Well, the United States decided, wait a minute, we cannot have, so they told the Japanese government, look, you can come to this market, but you cannot bring 14 products. Okay? So all of a sudden, they eliminated Daihatsu out of the marketplace. Then Isuzu went to the wayside. So that what happens is that was not done because they were not good brands. That was done because the United States did not want more Japanese brands competing against the big four. And they said, we'll let you come in the marketplace, but we're not going to let you dominate. Now, that's foreign policy for you. Now, the same thing applies with Volkswagen coming from Germany, BMW coming from Germany. You had all the vehicles that used to come from England. Okay, now you have Italian cars. You have Italians, you have Fiat. Now, what do? We allowed one of the big three, Chrysler, we allowed it to fall into foreign ownership. Well, folks, that is not fair. How can we allow a complete different company outside the United States control our destiny? Okay, that's not fair. Now, that's basically not being smart enough to understand what's in our best interest, because now the advertising dollars are controlled out of Italy, the advertising budget is controlled out of Italy, the factory manufacturers control out of Italy, and of course, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the gentleman. The guy is a brilliant person, very, very sharp guy, and God bless him. He was able to put a smart deal together for his benefit and for the benefit of the Italians. And if I was Italian, I would applaud him. If I was a shareholder, I would applaud him. But that was a bad policy decision on behalf of the United States. Okay, because we need to focus. What's going to happen to all those manufacturing jobs? What's going to happen when all those manufacturing jobs are being taken to China, or being taken to India, or being taken to elsewhere? I doubt it they'll go to Italy, but they're going to end up in China or India, okay, or Korea for that matter. No, Korea is too expensive. Okay, so the same thing applies. Now we have Hyundai, we have Kia, we have another one that most people never heard of, Samyang. So the question is, as you talk to manufacturers, you understand the world. You understand what's happening with Tata Motors. You understand what happened when Ford was basically hurting, and they were forced to sell Jaguar, and they were forced to sell their luxury brands. Folks, we need to support the industry. We need to support our homegrown industry. We need to support our jobs. And that's what a president needs to do. He needs to protect. We need to make sure that the jobs stay where they are. A good example is Bank of America. Bank of America used to be the largest bank in the world, eventually became number 33, and eventually somebody took it away from California and gave it to North Carolina. Well, that's not fair. Now, what did California do? Absolutely nothing. Now, all the decisions about where the money gets invested are no longer made in California. They're now being made in North Carolina. Now, the same thing. He's going to support the local golf club or the local YMCA or the local charities. When we in San Diego used to have Home Federal, Great American, Imperial Savings, they used to support every single institution in San Diego. Once the FDIC closed those three institutions down for no rhyme or reason, we lost all that local support. San Diego lost $66 billion worth of business, worth of assets, because for some unknown reason, which was a policy decision in Washington. So every action has a reaction. And that's basically the same thing with governments. So what we need to basically look is, okay, we're going to make this decision. If you squeeze this balloon on this end, it's going to pop up in a different end. Well, that's the same thing with the United States. That's the same thing with a global economy. You need to have somebody at the helm that has general knowledge how the world works, have the general knowledge how it affects us, how the different politics will affect different countries. And what's the hot button in Italy? What's the hot button in Greece? What's the hot button in Russia? Now, the question is, has anybody of the candidates been in Russia? Have they been in Ukraine? Have they been in the Black Sea? Have they been in Australia? Have they been in Singapore? Do they even know where American Samoa is? Do they know that American Samoa happens to give 17 delegates to the Democratic Convention? Does anybody know what Democrats abroad is? Well, all those Americans that are doing jobs for America outside the United States, but they also get a vote. Do they know how those people get affected when they try to go get a banking, when they try to get a bank? Well, folks, guess what? Been there, done that. And I did it thanks to the automobile industry, because the automobile industry took me to the most beautiful places on earth. I went through Volkswagen. They took me to so many trips. They took me to Bora Bora. I did not even know where Bora Bora was until I first showed up there. Okay, and I ended up going to Bora Bora 2 times after that. And of course, that's French Polynesian. And you have to fly from Los Angeles to Tahiti, and it's like 14 hours to get there. And then from Tahiti, you have to get another plane for 3 more hours to be able to get to Bora Bora. You know, for those who don't know where Bora is, I recommend taking a girlfriend with you. If not, it's very boring. Or taking your wife.
All right. Thank you, Rocky. That definitely is a unique perspective. And I'd like to move on to the next topic is resource policy. You kind of touched on that when you were talking about all the different hats a car dealer wears. You know, and managing the resources in the dealership. How do you feel that would translate into managing the resources and the resource policy of the United States?
I apologize. Can you please repeat the question? Somebody was pointing out to me something very important that just came in the, how do you call it? In reference to but please ask me the question again, please.
Yes. Rocky, you mentioned the resources of a car dealer and managing all the different resources at the dealership level. As on a national stage, you know, how do you feel your experience would translate into effective resource policy for the United States?
Well, I have a lot of experience because in addition to being in the automobile business, I happen to have the honor of getting the first power plant approved in the history of California after 40 years. So in my property, there's a power plant that's 660 megawatts facility. And I knew what it took to be able to bring that power plant to life. And it took the California Black House to finally somebody on the bureaucrats decided to approve these plants. They had not approved one in California for over 40 years. Now, as we're speaking, there's a new power plant being built, which is 330 megawatts. So I understand everything that has to do with energy. And I have to do everything that has to do with power plant. And the answer, wow, he's burning gas, he's burning butane. Well, guess what? Of course I love everything to be powered by wind. Of course I would like everything to be powered by water. Of course I would like to everything be powered by hydroelectric. Of course I would like everything to be powered by solar. But in certain times it's not practical in a certain time frame. It is practical in the long term, but how do you bridge the gap between now and then? And who pays for that bill? And the people that end up paying is the bottom of the barrel. And the people that pay for it is basically the people that need the money the most. Yes, you and I can afford to put solar in the roofs, and yes, we can afford to wait 10 years for the thing to break even, and yes, the utilities can charge XYZ, and yes, it's a good policy because it's heading us in the right direction, and it's forcing people to think outside the box. But remember, I don't think outside the box. I threw the box away. So when you throw the box away, it gives you a better perspective. So the answer is yes, solar will work in many states, Texas, Arizona, California, but solar will not work in certain northern states. Okay, wind, it will work in certain states, but it will not work in all. And then you have to take a look at what happens. What happens when there's no wind? Where do you store all the energy? You need to be prepared for the hottest day in summer, for the highest peak, to be able not to have your refrigerator go dead. So there's a lot of things that people do not understand. Do you know what a peaker plant is? Okay. Do you know what a peaker? Do you know what a peaker plant is?
A peaker plant? I don't.
Yeah. Well, peaker plants are plants that are basically being built across the nation to be able to take the demand of peak energy in a specific time frame. So these plants only operate on peak times. So here you have these multi-million-dollar plants, and I'm talking about 500, 600, 800, $1 billion plants that are sitting there idle just so they could take care of electricity basically on a spur of a moment for 1 hour. Okay? Well, guess who pays for all that? We, the taxpayers. Well, actually not the taxpayers. We, the users. We who use a cell phone. We who use a refrigerator. We who use a light. pays for all that excess. Technically, our electrical bills should be technically 50% of what they are today. But they're not, because we have created monopolies within all those utilities. Now, you need to understand they're public utilities. They're not supposed to be rape the people that use those utilities. And that's what happens every time you create monopolies. I don't care what type of monopoly. Whatever monopoly there's out there is bad. It's not good for the people. It's not good for our pocketbooks. It's not good for policy. And it makes the people that govern those monopolies lazy, because they're not accountable for anybody. But the answer is you talk about resources. Now, I happen to have been involved. I was 60 days ago in, there's something that's amazing that's happening right now in Europe. I don't know how much you're familiar with biodiesel, or how much Giovanni is familiar with that whole technology. Well, they just basically, do you know what levinic acid is?
Actually, I'm somewhat familiar with diesel, but if I'm not familiar with that.
Okay. Our body produces this liquid. It's called LEVO, levulinic acid. And it's an acid that our body produces that nobody has been able to figure out how this liquid is produced, but our body produces naturally. Well, guess what? This particular thing, they've been trying to find how to duplicate this thing that our body produces naturally, and they just found the formula about 60 days ago in Europe. In this is going to, it comes out of 80% about anything that has more than 40% glucose, and anything that has more than part of the biomass. Well, guess what? That's the most exciting thing I ever heard, because every one of the petroleum-based products that we use today are going to be replaced with these new assets. And that's going to basically spark so many jobs in America. It's no different than when Shell came into America 60, 70 years ago, or when Chevron came to America 60, 70 years ago, and they built the El Segundo plant and all these refineries. Well, all these plants will continue to work. The only difference is, instead of processing oil, okay, they will be producing corn. They will take the waste of the corn, the waste of the sugar cane, and they will take the wood and some of the waste, and we'll be able to fuel, just like you saw. Remember the movie Back to the Future?
Yeah.
Well, in that beautiful movie, they use a DeLorean. Well, I don't know if you noticed, when he came back from the future, he put some garbage. He put, I think, a banana peel and something else into the engine. He said, this is the fuel of the future. Well, guess what? Whoever came up with that movie, they were right. In other words, one of the things that I'm amazed is when I take a look at Jules Verne, and I see what Jules Verne was able to predict: airplanes, submarines, and everybody thought he was crazy. Well, guess what? Today we have the submarines. Today we have the boats. Today we have the ship liners. Today we have the Panama Canal. Today we have the new Panama Canal under construction. And they're talking about foreign policy. How can we fought so hard to be able to build the Panama Canal? How many millions of jobs they died building the Panama Canal? We fought it. We did it for 100 years. We gave it back to Panama after 100 years. And now we have China building the new Panama, the new Panama in Nicaragua. How can we as Americans allow China to control the flow of goods? That's because nobody's watching what's happening to the world economy. Now, where do you learn that? In the car business. You learn that when you basically bring in product from Germany, and the product has to come to the Panama Canal to get to you, and there's a strike in Panama, and the ship doesn't get here. You get it when you're getting product from Japan, either be called Subarus, Isuzus, Daihatsus, or whatever products I represented from Japan. Okay, I also represented Isuzu from Japan. So you understand what it is to bring automobiles from Japan, automobiles from Korea, automobiles from Europe, or from whatever they're manufacturing. And of course, I also had the experience with Cadillac. Cadillac decided to make a vehicle in Italy, designed by Pininfarina, and made the vehicle in Detroit, in the Hamtramck plant. And what did they do with those bodies? They flew those bodies on 747s from Italy, from the plant, all the way to Detroit, that produced the 1977 Alante. Now that's called experience. That's called world progress. That's called a world economy. Now, so anyway, I talk too fast, but go ahead.
Okay. All right. Now, actually, I'm going to draw back to the first question again. You mentioned that you kept your one dealership so that your two sons could be educated in that Cadillac store. Yeah, I mean that's a really a neat idea. How would you take the education that you get in the car business and then apply that to educational policy for the country?
Well, the question is this: what do you do when you hire Salesforce and the guy quits? What do you do when you hire a parts manager and he quits? What do you do when you have a service advisor and he quits? What do you do when a customer comes into you with a vehicle and tells you that he wants a new car because there's the lemon law? What happens when you happen to have a class action lawyer sue you because they happen to decide that they wanted to basically get a freebie from you? So the answer is, you tell me what part of the automobile industry is not directly or indirectly affected by our government or government policy. I mean, basically, everything we do, we happen to basically have, on one hand, we're the franchisee, and we have the manufacturer that they think they're God. So we are basically the franchisee dealing with a factory that they think they're God. We're dealing with a government that is basically our partner. Why is the government our partner? Well, they make 30% of every dollar I make, I have to give it to the federal government. 11% of every dollar I make, I have to give it to the state governments. So 41, I have two partners in my business, and they don't, not only they don't work, they do everything they can to make my difficult more difficult. I have to give them 41% of my money, and they basically, everything they do is come up with more rules and regulations to make my business more difficult. So the question is, I have to pay 7.5% for Social Security. Well, now I understand that 7.5% from Social Security coming out of my pocket, 7.5% coming from the employee's pocket. Now they got 15% of all the income of every worker in America. How can that system be broke when they basically have more money than probably 50 countries around the world? If it's broke, it's because whoever's running it is being completely 100% mismanaged. I don't think they even took accounting 101 or 201 yep. For that matter. So now, how do I know that? Well, guess what? I had a financial statement that I had to deal with. I had a financial statement that I had to make these things meet day in and day out. And if I knew that by day 10 I was only selling 20% of my budgeted amount, I knew that that month was going to be a disaster. And I knew that if all of a sudden the vehicles that were going to allocate it for me did not get on time, that I was going to be a disaster. I knew that if it rained, it was going to be a disaster. I mean, basically, we were subject to everything conceivable. And then, of course, you have companies like yours saying next month is going to be a bad month. Well, why did you tell people it's going to be a bad month? They did not know it was going to be a bad month. You guys make the prediction, and then it becomes true.
Yeah. All right.
Why don't you guys make, why don't you guys make a prediction? Next month's going to be a good month.
Well, you know what? We at Auto Success, Rocky, we try to keep everything positive. So I'll go ahead and make a prediction that 2016 is going to be the best year in the car business yet, and I think that January is going to end strong, and February is even going to be better.
Well, I thank you very much for that. But now, guess what? What happens in the automobile business is, okay, 2016 and 2015 and 2014, but eventually 2018, 2019, what's going to happen? Unless we happen to have a president that basically understands the global economy, unless he understands the taxes, unless he understands the burden he puts on the taxpayers, both the low end, the middle end, or the high end, people need to understand that every action has a reaction. In my experience, I told you that I worked in the automobile business, but I don't know if I shared with you, I was selected by my fellow dealers, and I was the youngest person alive, even today, to be the chairman of the National Dealer Council. At age 28, I was the chairman. To be able to be chairman at 28, I had to be vice chairman in 1981 at 27. I had to be in the National Dealer Council at age 26. I have to be in the regional dealer council at age 25. I had to be in the California dealer council at age 24, and I had to be elected in Southern California at age 23. Now, you're aware that for me to be, if I miss any one of those years, immediately you go back to the drawing board. So how many chairmen of any manufacturer did you know they have been the chairman elected by the fellow dealers at age 28?
No, I mean, none.
Okay, and I doubted you'll even see him at 38. But now I did it with unbelievable odds. That manufacturer at that time was the third largest manufacturer in the world. And they did not want a 28-year-old kid being the chairman. And they lobbied for me not to be elected. And I still surpassed all those odds, and I got elected by my fellow dealers because they recognized what I was able to bring to the table. Now, in 1988, I was the chairman of the Mexican-American Foundation, something that I hold very, very, very dearly. I was 34 years old. Very lucky to be the chairman in 1988. Now, I can tell you the same thing. I was the first person to use the border crossing in 1985. I was the first person to do a land swap in the history of the state of California. First private person ever to do one, and last one to ever do it. And I doubted it'll ever happen again. So I can tell you I was a dealer to go into a shopping mall before Tesla even thought about it. I did that in 1981. I was the first automobile dealer in 1976 to do a self-service parts department and put accessories. I was the first person to put a pure department in the United States in the service department, and I also was the first one to take it out because it didn't work. So now, today, of course, it's standard, but in those days, I was ahead of my times. But I can tell you things that I have done in the automobile business that are brilliant, that are unbelievable brilliant, and gave me the thought and the concept to think outside the box. And eventually, I got so tired of looking at the box that I got rid of the box.
Right.
Now,
Well,
let me share something with you, just curiosity. We take a look at the franchise system. The franchise system is not only cars. It's McDonald's. It's not McDonald's. It's any. I mean, there's so many franchises. Either be the sandwich people. I mean, look at all the franchise. And basically, every one of those people need to be protected because, believe it or not, those people sitting in the ivory tower in Detroit or in Japan, or the ones that basically handle the sandwich shops or McDonald's, they treat their franchisee like they were third-class citizens. Now, it doesn't happen all the facts with all the franchises, but in reality, it's terrible. And this is the backbone of America.
Okay. Well, I'm going to move on to economic policy, and this, I know this is a really hot topic with all the candidates, and it really should be on the top of mind of every American. Is the amount of unfunded liability that the government has in Social Security and Medicare. You know, in a business standpoint, if a business owner like yourself were to ever run with an unfunded liability like that, it would be criminal. But our government has done it for years. Rocky, how do you feel? What would be the first steps you'd take to try to fix that situation?
Well, let's start the first. You need to take a look at the size of the problem. The problem has become so large that you need to think outside the box or throw the box away. First of all, the current debt of the government is $17 trillion. Now, they have basically had an advantage over the last few years because interest rates have been very, very low. The number one consumer of money in the world is the United States. So if the interest rates go up, the person that pays the most is the United States. Now, if interest rates stay low, the people that hurt are basically people above 60 years of age or 70 years of age. They normally have their money tied up in savings accounts or in banks. So then they're forced to take their money from banks to put them basically in Wall Street to in turn try to get a better return on their money. So it's a combination of doing a juggling act. Now, I mentioned the problem is 17 trillion. Then you get mentioned what you just mentioned, which is the unfunded liability. Well, if you were a corporation in anywhere in the world, you would have to have declared bankruptcy. The United States, for all practical purposes, today is bankrupt. It's bankrupt because they owe $17 trillion, plus they have the unfunded liabilities, which in my opinion is at least 6 times that amount, which is about $102 trillion. So today, our debt is basically $119 trillion. That's $700,000 per every man, woman, and child. Excuse me, 30,000 times 7. That's $210,000 per every man, woman, and child in the United States. So that's a hell of a liability that we're basically tapping on and passing the buck on to future generations. The only way we're going to be able to accomplish that, we need to grow out of it. And we need to grow out of it smartly. First of all, you have to have a 0% interest rate. And you need to tell the whole world that the United States is going to have a 0% interest rate. Why? Because we do not want to pay interest on our $17 trillion debt. So that's actually going in the right direction. The second part of that equation becomes is how do we get to reduce that debt and those liabilities? Well, you need to make sure that those liabilities don't keep growing. So if you're adding all these extra Social Security debt or all these unfunded liability debt, you need to make sure that it doesn't keep growing at a faster rate than the money's coming in. And last but not least, how do you pay the $17 trillion debt? Well, you need to basically generate enough jobs and opportunity to be able to start paying that debt down. It ain't going to go away just by us thinking about it. Okay? So we owe a responsibility to future generations. Why? My generation, I have no idea how old you are, Brian, but how old are you?
I'm 39.
Okay, you're a young kid. I would trade everything I have to be able to be your age, okay? But I still want to have my mind, okay? But I'm only 1/3 older than you. But that 1/3, believe me or not, is a huge hell of a difference in experience. Now, based on your age and based on my age, my generation, that's why I ask you the age, my generation is the first generation that lived a lot better than our parents. And it might be the last one. Now, I cannot say the same thing about my kids. I have a 14-year-old. I have a 16-year-old, a 25, 26-year-old, and I also have 2 more that are a little bit older than that, all from the same marriage. And more importantly, is my 5 kids, I have no idea what their future looks like. Now, maybe my kids are taken care of because his father and his grandfather and his grandmother worked their buns off, okay? And maybe they're protected regardless of what policy or decisions or bad decisions our future government officials do. And maybe they'll be protected. But the question is, what happens to the rest of America? What happens to the rest of our children? Well, folks, we need to do something about it. You probably have, you're 39, you probably got married when you're 28, 29, 30, you probably have a kid today, probably 7 to 8 years old. Assuming you don't have 2. How many kids do you have?
I have 2.
Well, see? For what ages?
Actually, they're 22 and 20. They're my stepsons. My wife's a little older than me.
Okay, well, guess what? But see, you didn't have some of your own. Then you would have known what it is to raise them. You raised them when they're already potty trained.
Yeah, I got them at 3 and 5, so I got lucky there.
Okay, but Brian, we need to be smart about this. How would somebody in the card business? Where do you pick somebody to become a sales manager? Where do you pick somebody to be a service manager? How do you pick somebody to be a service advisor? I mean, the same thing. We need to look somebody to run this country. Do the same thing that you would pick a general manager to run a dealership. You need to run this country, and once you pick your manager, he's going to be in charge of picking the service department. He's going to pick the service manager, the parts manager, the F&I manager, the sales manager, okay, and so forth and so on. So the question is, what does that mean? You need to pick Secretary of State, Secretary of Transportation, Secretary of Housing. One position, which I don't want to really add that much people to government, I would like to add Secretary of Tourism. I cannot believe we don't have a Secretary of Tourism. You know how much jobs we can generate by having some smart policy in tourism? we could generate between 2.2 to 3.3 million new jobs a year. In this field that I was telling you about biodiesel, with this new technology in Europe, that can generate in the United States 3 new million jobs a year, year in and year out. With some of my ideas that are mine and shared by some of my friends, there's an idea that I will not share with you, but it will generate instantly 8% new jobs in America, instant. 8% new jobs, and it will create additional. It will create an additional boon to the economy, an eightfold of 24% growth. Now, I don't think these people have ever talked about a growth factor more than 3 or 4 percentage points. But folks, if we're going to pay this $17 trillion, we need to be able to grow at a rate higher than 5% a year. And the only way you're going to grow at a rate of 5% a year is to have policies that we're all working in the same direction. Now, let me tell you about the same direction. My son used to be competitive in a rowboat. There's 8 people in a rowboat, plus there's the guy in the head of the rowboat that tells them, row, row, row. Well, let me tell you what the United States looks like today. You have 4 guys in Congress rowing backwards. You have 2 sitting with their oars, hitting the people that yelling the instructions. 2 water. Where do you think that boat is going to go to?
It's going to sink.
No, it won't sink because they're smart enough not to make it sink.
They don't want to sink.
They just don't want. Nobody wants their boat to sink. They just basically don't want to work.
Yep.
So we basically have a lot of issues that have to be resolved. And the question is, I don't care where you touch it. If you talk foreign policy, if you talk Middle East, if you talk anything you talk, it's a mess. Because nobody deals with the issues. Nobody wants to talk about the issues. If I have a problem in my service department, the first thing I do is I go get rid of my service manager. Now, in this country, when you have a problem with somebody, you promote him.
That's the truth, Rocky.
So anyway, you got me inspired, and I haven't been inspired so long in a while, but I normally try to be more calm, more relaxed, but I have a debate in about 2 hours, and it's I need to take about an hour nap because I did not sleep last night. But anyway, ask me. I love this question and answer because I'm doing all the talking.
Sure. Well, let's move on to the next one. I mean, and actually, your first answer really is a great caveat into these other questions. You mentioned, that you've got 2 partners in your business, the state and the federal government, that are essentially don't show up to work and do everything they can to make it harder, and you're always on defense from class action lawsuits. As far as being a president of the United States, what would you change in our defense policy in order to keep us safe at home?
Well, that's one of the things that we basically have. You need to take a look at the Constitution. The Constitution tells you exactly what you're supposed to and not supposed to do. Nowhere in the Constitution it says that we have to protect the whole world from the whole world, okay? We have basically taken that role upon ourselves. We need to protect Americans, and we need to protect America first. And first of all, look at all the unemployment people we have. Take a look at all the homeless we have. We're trying to worry about all these things coming from abroad when we happen to have problems internally that for those people that are homeless, those people do not have anything to eat, those people do not have jobs, those people don't have hopes. They don't care what happens in the world. They just want a job. They just want to have an opportunity. They just want an education. Now, I'm not saying we're not going to protect them. Well, of course we're going to protect them. But we're not going to waste money like it's been being wasted for the last 100 years. You need to we need to grow up, folks. When is this? This is like musical chairs. There's basically, you have 440 congressmen, you have 100 senators, plus every part of the government there, and there's only 100 chairs, folks. Well, when the music stops, how are those 440 plus 100? That's 540 people plus the president and vice president. That's 442 people plus all the secretaries of state. Okay, but let's leave it at that. Let's leave it at 542 people. How are they going to sit when there's only 100 chairs? And guess what? They're going to grab a chair, and what's going to happen to the rest of America? The rest of America is not even going to have a chance to get us. You know, I just remember a movie. I don't know if you remember the movie where the world was coming to an end because of water, and they built these beautiful boats, and they were making a decision of where these. It was like a Noah's Ark. It was like the Noah's Ark. I don't know if you remember the movie I saw. And that's exactly what's going to happen when the music stops. The rich and powerful will get a seat on the boat. The politicians will get a seat on the boat, and the rest of America, including the children, will be left without anything.
Because yeah, I think I did see that. I did see that movie, but I can't remember the name of it, Rocky.
Okay, well, maybe you have one of your people in the audience type it to you. But it was a beautiful movie. It's a one that had those. They look like arcs, and it's a very nice movie. Very well done.
Yes. Well, Rocky, I know I kept you longer than what we initially discussed. I appreciate you taking the time. I had a couple more questions, but we can address those on another day. I don't want to keep you from your debate. I know you got the debate. I know you got the debate coming up here.
You know,
could you say that one more time?
In the car business, we're accustomed to dealing with 20 things. So let me ask you a question. Do you have any questions from your audience?
Actually, everyone in the audience, if you have any questions, please type them in right now.
And maybe you can do it.
Actually, I do have one. Rocky, where do you stand? I know you mentioned that you helped create a border crossing. Where do you stand as far as immigration policy changes to the United States?
Well, if you take a look at my page says that I will not cash a paycheck until I accomplish 4 things. So I'm going to get 50% of the employment, not unemployment, 50% of the homeless off the streets. 2, a million new jobs instantly, okay? And of course, I believe we need to generate 30 new jobs. 3rd, I would like to create 100 new city parks at no cost to the taxpayers. So we automatically have reading rooms in all the intercities and be able to promote sports. And last but not least is to create a smart and intelligent immigration policy. And there's going to have to be a little bit give and take to be able to accomplish that. But I start with the following premise. For us to be able to pay the debt, we need to create jobs. For us to be able to create jobs, we need to not people, 11 million people that come in the United States as assets. Every other candidate sees them as liability. Everybody wants to think, let's get rid of them, and maybe our problems will get solved. Well, if anybody happens to be in the car business when the business is going down, you can start firing people left and right, and the ship and the boat is still going to sink. You need to basically get everybody in that ship rowing in the same direction. So my position is we need to create enough jobs, not only for those 11 million people, but by the way, those 11 million people today do jobs that most Americans will never take. They're basically picking tomatoes. They're working at McDonald's. They're working in greasers. They're working in so a lot of those people are taking jobs that no other American wants. So if we basically have those 11 million people leave the country, who's going to replace those jobs? I don't see anybody replacing those jobs. But let me give you another part of the equation. Let's say you now are able to let's say you're able to get rid of the 11 million people. And how do you physically do it? A bus has 52 people. Every 20 buses is 1,000 people. Every 200 buses happens to be 10,000 people. You know how many buses you need to take to get 11 million people out of this country? Okay, now, what do you do? What are you going to do? Wow, we want everybody to go the next day? What are you going to do? How are you going to get them out? From Chicago, from Detroit? From where are you going to get all these people out? Now, where are they going to go? Let's say that now you have to send 100,000 to Honduras. You have to send 100,000 to Nicaragua. You have to send 100,000 to Costa Rica. what's going to happen? Are those countries prepared to able to take these people that today send $400 to $500 every month to those countries? Now you're going to destabilize those countries. You're going to create revolutions in those countries. And you're going to have the same nightmare we created in the Middle East in America. Now, do you think people understand that? Or they just basically want to get elected and says, wow, we need to close our borders. We need to, folks, you need to think more than two days ahead. Now, let me ask you a question. What do you think Mexico is going to do if 5 million people in the United States, these are the 5 million that are undocumented, some of those people have families, some of those people have American citizens. The kids that are born, they have children, they have grandchildren. So every time you make a decision, you're affecting the decision of the head of the household, which might be 82 years old. You're affecting his son, his grandson, his wife. There's people that are married. You have Hispanics marrying Americans. You have Americans marrying Hispanics. People understand the logistics. They're going to say, well, we ain't going to be able to do it. But in the meantime, all those people live in fear. Now, if these people happen to leave the country, and let's say we create new industries and we need them back, you think they're going to come back? Oh, now we need you. No, we don't. Now we need you. Well, guess what? China will South America. They'll plant and they'll basically use all these workers, and they'll basically help the Chinese economy, the Indian economy. And guess who's going to consume all those goods? America. So you need to think outside the box. Now, I don't have all the answers, but at least I can get direction.
Rocky, are you there?
I'm here. I'm here. I was waiting for you to ask me one more question.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. If I keep yeah, go ahead. Okay. Actually, that's the only question that I got. Rocky, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today, and you're welcome to come back anytime you'd like. Please let me know.
Well, I'll ask you the same thing. Okay, today you got me on a very important date. By the way, we just got news about 10 minutes ago, and we just qualified for one more state. We just qualified in Hawaii. So it's today I'm the first modern person in history in the United States that has not been supported by either the Democrats or the Republicans. That today is going to be at least in 32 states today, and I plan to get in every single state of the union, plus the 5 territories. So the people will have a choice. The people in Detroit will have a choice. The people in different states. Ohio, there's only 3 of us in Ohio. In Ohio, it's Clinton, Sanders, and me. So Ohio is a very rich state, 120 and 191 delegate. I believe it's 191, maybe 171. It's 171 rich delegate states. I think it's 191. I do not have the number in front of me. But that's a beautiful delegate. There's only 3 people that are going to share that number. Only 3 people.
Wow.
In North Carolina, there's only 4 of us. In Michigan, there's only 4 of us. And I had to earn my way into the ballot the old-fashioned way. I had to work on it 7 days a week, 18 hours a day to be able to get on the ballots. I was not the political privilege. I am the working class. I'm the guy that has to work for a living. I'm the one that pays for that 30% of federal tax, and I'm the one that pays for that 11% of state tax. I have never collected $1 from the public from the public office. My taxes pay for all these people in Washington doing absolutely nothing. Their taxes doesn't pay for absolutely nothing. All they do is create nightmares for everybody. So we need somebody. We need somebody that has common sense. And I thought that Donald Trump had common sense, but guess what? The more he speaks, I think the guy is missing a couple of marbles. It's the guy will say anything with any logical common sense. He says he's a business person. Business person where? Okay, I would like to know. He has insulted every man, woman, and child. He even insults another fellow candidate. He calls her that she's ugly, and he does not have the responsibility to be able to say, I'm sorry. Now, you think that's fair? Now, this guy gets elected president, and you know what's going to happen? He's going to lead us to third and fourth World War. He'll get everybody so pissed at us, it'll be not even be funny. He'll put the Muslims against the Catholic against the Jewish against the Catholic. I mean, everybody will be basically will be fighting for a corner. Now, we need to put the word united back in United States, not make it the divided states of America.
Yeah, you know, that my wife says the exact same thing, Rocky. She says she uses that exact same phrase.
Well, guess what? Smart people think alike.
You know what? She's listening right now, and she just smiled. And she's smiling and giggling right now. She heard you say that.
But
she gave me I say she gave me a terrible look when I said she was older than me. But
well, I would. To be honest with you, I knew that was going to happen when you said it. I knew it was going to happen. But that means she's also older. She's got to be at least 28% smarter than you.
See what?
She has to be 28% smarter. She has wisdom in her age. Anyway, let me close with a close with the following statement. In other words, you basically see I'm forced to listen to all these politicians, both Democrats and Republicans. Everybody blames the Republicans, the Republican blames the Democrats. But I'm forced to listen. Basically, this campaign theory, this campaign rhetoric, it's filled with ignorance and hate. Okay? And what we should be talking is not about ignorance and hate or even arrogance. Ignorance, arrogance, and hate. We should be talking about wisdom and respect. We want the rest of the world to love us for what we represent with respect. We want them to honor us because of forward thinking, not because we are ignorant and we're trying to create hate. But that's not what America's about. We have our forefathers left England. They left the different European countries to come here to escape what was happening over there. And they came up with a Bill of Rights. They came up with a Constitution for us to be able to figure out what to do. And to destroy that past. Folks, those people knew what it was to live under tyranny. Those people knew what it is to be able to become a king, generation after generation, to don't give them an option. I don't know if you saw the movie Braveheart, and I could not believe when I saw the movie of what the type of law the English had against the Scottish. Take a look at the laws the English have had against the Irish. Okay? So it's a matter of how you look at it. If you want to come up with a solution, don't ask me for the solution. Just look at history. History has any and all of our solutions. Now it's our job to take a look at those solutions and implement them. Not to argue about them, implement them in the same direction as the word united, as the word United States of America.
Thank you, Rocky. I appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Everybody on the line, if you haven't yet, join Auto Success Webinars on Facebook. It's where you can come to find out about future webinars and interact with our speakers. Rocky, I really appreciate you taking the time today, and I wish you good luck tonight in your debate.
Well, I hope that you're able to communicate to your listeners that there is hope. I see it in my Facebook. I see it in my page, Rocky 2000. I have to throw a commercial. Rocky2060.com. In case you do not know how to spell Rocky, it's R-O-C-K-Y, and vice versa. If you happen to be Hispanic, hablo perfectamente español. Cuando hablo en español, pienso en español. Cuando hablo en inglés, pienso en inglés. And my page in Spanish is Roque2016.com. And anyway, I'm 100% bilingual. I have about 12 different cultures under my belt, and I will basically, if you allow me to lead you, I will lead you. I will lead this country and try to lead you and look to the. I'm not going to complain about what happened in the past. I'm just going to think about what I need to do in the future to make sure that our future generations have a hope. Actually, they're not going to have hope. They're going to do well.
Thank you, Rocky. I think you're going to do well as well, my friend.
Thank you very much, Brian. Okay, thank you. And tell your wife that the next time you mention what you did on the air, she should hit you with a baseball bat. That she's got my permission.
Okay. she's smiling and giggling now too.
Take care. Okay.
All right, you too. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.